Who was Kobe Bryant as an individual and personality in high school? If we were in high school together.
Much the same that I am now, actually, which is extremely curious. Extremely curious. I had a great teacher in high school. Her name is Jane Mastriano, who I'm still very close to. And she sparked my curiosity in writing. And the reason why I felt it was important at the time was not for the writing's sake, or not for storytelling purposes, but there are things in story, inherently in story, that can help me be a better basketball player, be a better teammate, a better leader, understand emotions better. So that's why I got into storytelling, actually. So it's just insanely curious, man. And trivial things weren't going to pull my attention. It had to be things weren't going to pull my attention. It had to be things that I had a purpose. I wanted to be one of the best basketball players to ever play. And anything else that was outside of that lane, I didn't have time for.
At what age did that goal become crystal clear?
I made that deal with myself at 13 years old.
At 13 years old?
13 years old. That's the
deal
I made.
You were crystal clear about it?
Crystal clear.
And where did inspiration come from?
The love of the game. The love of the game, the challenge. Like I would watch Magic play, I'd watch Michael play, and I would see them do these unbelievable things, and I'd say, can I get to that level? I don't know, but let's find out. Let's find out. And so that curiosity to see where I could push this thing led me down that path, I think.
Led you down that path?
I think so.
Now, were you always competitive from the day you were born? You were super competitive?
Competitive with things that I participate in.
So the one thing when I see with you, and I think about like brain and I think focus, like you know how so many different things brain can get distracted on, and I'm going to put focus on this and focus on this and focus on this. Mm-hmm. Do you think one of the edge you had over everybody else was the biggest percentage of your focus was on one thing? Mm-hmm. Do you see it that way? Like that was my edge over everybody else?
I do. At the time, I didn't really understand that. Right? So, basketball for me was the most important thing. So everything I saw, whether it was TV shows, whether it was books I read, people I talked to, everything was done to try to learn how to become a better basketball player. Everything. And so when you have that point of view, then literally the world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
The world becomes your library to help you improve your craft, better your craft.
Yes, indeed.
So because you know what you want, the world's giving you exactly the information you need to become better at it.
Because you know what you're looking for. Yeah.
So when you size your peers up, how'd you size your peers up? Like if you're sizing people, I'm talking you're 13 years old, you're sizing peers up, what lens are you looking through your peers?
So at 13 years old, I had a I had a kill list. And so, they used to do these rankings. It was Street and Smith basketball rankings. And I was nowhere to be found because I was like 6'4", scrawny, like 160 pounds soaking wet. So I was like 57 on the list. And so I would look at 56, 55, all the way up to number 1, who these players are, what club teams they played for. So when we go on an AAU travel circuit, I got to hunt them down. Right? And so that became my mission in high school, is to check off every other person, all those 56 other names, hunt them down and knock them down.
In the Muse, you said, I knew you couldn't do what I was doing because I was obsessed, I'm paraphrasing, and then you said whether it's friends, relationship, it didn't matter, it was all basketball.
Yeah.
If I'm buddies with you from high school, if I'm a cousin of yours, what happened to our relationship? How did that gravitate when you went into the league and you're determined to become the greatest, or you're determined to become one of the greatest? What happens to our relationship?
Oh, it suffers.
It does suffer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you understood that? You were okay with that?
Well, yeah. And the people that love you, like friends and family, like they know that about you.
Got it.
So they let you be you. And when you reconvene, you pick back up where you left off. Mm-hmm. But make no mistake about it, everything in between is lost, right? So those long-term relationships, the commitment of time of, taking vacation. Like I see a lot of players take vacations with other players that are close friends. And we'll just take vacations just to take vacations, or just hang out just to hang out. Like I never did that.
Why not though? Why didn't you do that?
Well, because when I retire, I didn't want to have to say, I wish I would have done more. I don't want that.
Who were some of the guys that you saw and you watched that weren't just driven by the money? Were there some names that you looked at and says, these three guys are as crazy as I am?
At the time, I deal with what I've referred to as Goat Mountain. I went to Goat Mountain and I talked to Magic, Michael, Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon, Jerry West, Oscar Robinson, Bill Russell. So I would talk to them. What did you do? What were your experiences? Michael in particular, he's become my big brother. He's been my big brother since I first came in the league. And what was that process like? And so I went to them and started understanding the ins and outs of the game and how they approach things and their level of detail and obsessiveness. And that's what I did.
Why do you think, and first of all, let me ask how it felt, but I'm curious to know why you think as well. How did it feel knowing, like, from the moment you got into the league, the guy at the time is the greatest of all time, everybody wants to be like Mike, Gatorade, all this stuff. The level of respect he had for you when he spoke about you was different than everybody else. And you're an 18, 19-year-old kid at that time.
Yeah.
How did that feel when you heard how he spoke about you?
It made me feel good, but not like what I told him. I was like, you didn't say anything I didn't already know, so.
Phil Jackson gets asked between you and MJ, right? Because he coached both of you guys. So,
yeah.
You constantly gets asked that question. He said something about you that to me, it's a level of respect that any player can duplicate what he said about you. To me, the level of respect for that is a whole different level. You can't teach big hands.
Right.
You cannot teach that, right?
Right.
You cannot teach 49, 48-inch, whatever the vertical leap is, and you cannot teach that, right?
Sure.
But he said, nobody in his history of coaching had your level of work ethic. I mean, you hear so many guys tell stories about your work ethic.
Yeah.
What was really your work ethic like, and for how long did you stay disciplined?
Well, I mean, every day. I mean, since for 20 years. I mean, it was an everyday process, and trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses. For example, jumping ability. My vertical was a 40. It wasn't a 46 or a 45. My hands are big, but they're not massive. Right? So you got to figure out ways to strengthen them so your hands are strong enough to be able to palm a ball and do the things that you need to do. Quickness, I was quick, but not insanely quick. I was fast, but not ridiculously fast. Right? So I had to rely on skill a lot more. I had to rely on angles a lot more. I had to study the game a lot more. And but I enjoyed it though. So like from the time I can remember when I started watching the game, I studied the game, and it just never changed. I don't deal with people that don't commit at that level, but then act as if they do. I don't deal with that.
What were some of the factors you looked at on how to improve your game season after season?
The game itself it's a complicated answer. So there are very tactical things in terms of footwork and geometry of the court. So you're looking at the court and looking at the 45-degree angles that the court is shaped in and how it needs to operate. That's one component to it. So looking at spots on the floor where you can increase your efficiency, right? You can be on the wing, but there's a certain spot on the wing that improves your angle to drive to the basket, right? So that sort of stuff. Footwork of the opposition, looking at the emotion of the opposition, their tendencies, their weaknesses, and all that stuff. Understanding the momentum of the game, how to create momentum shifts, where momentum shifts come from, all this sort of stuff. And then studying outside of that, right? Looking at different industries, looking at conductors, looking at writers, looking at actors and how they get into character, and then how do they keep themselves in that mental space. So looking at different industries, looking at nature itself, and learning from that and how you can incorporate that into the game. Man, it's a lot of studying.
If you're looking at somebody to go into business with, or if you're looking at a big investments you got to make, what is the decision-making process there? Do you call? Is there first you do your own research? You take this much time. You call an advisor. Is there a system you follow?
It's pretty simple for me. It's do you understand the business? Is it a business that you can help in some form or fashion? What are the barriers of entry to that business? And then the entrepreneurs themselves, the company itself. Right? Do they have a culture that you believe is sustainable? Are these leaders people that you believe in? Are they people that are obsessives? And in turn, have they created a culture of obsessiveness? So I tend to look at those 4 factors, and that's it. You got a lot of people paying their hard-earned money to come watch you perform. Perform. It's your job to be in shape. It's your job to be strong enough to perform at that level every single night.
Obviously, in the league, you were known as a great recruiter. So what is your recruiting approach? So if you're sitting down with me, I'm somebody you really want me on the team. What's your approach to recruiting?
You want first place, come play with me. You want second place, go somewhere else.